So I've been reading the book Mastery recently by Robert Greene, and there's a YouTube video I saw recently that I will try to find the link to put it in the description about learning things more slowly. And there's a lot to be said there. I am as guilty as anyone, probably more so about trying to multitask, trying to do a bunch of things at one time, and feeling like I get little pieces of a bunch of different things going, but not completing near as much as I would like. Um, a good friend of mine, Sig Sawyer, had said years ago that I was somebody that he loved watching me get about 70 to 80% towards the goal, and then not. I mean, he said it nicer than this, I think, but he said that I was good at getting like 70 to 80% towards the goal and then not completing it. But he said it was impressive because most people he knew didn't get that far. But since getting that input from him, I did try to focus on one project at a time, much to my own frustration, because I want to do all of the things all at once. I want to be the everything bagel. But we can't do everything at once. No matter how much we'd like to, our resources of time, energy, and focus are finite. Because even if we have energy, we might not have any energy left to create or to learn or to absorb. Also, we can't learn all the things at once. It does take time. Not only does it take time, it takes repetition. For instance, I also have worked in sales, and when I started in sales, I knew nothing about the industries that I'd gotten into. Now, over time, I learned quite a bit about those industries just through being involved, through having to attend meetings, through having to look things up because people would ask me questions that I did not know the answers to. One job involved, it was pretty funny, it involved selling commercial trucks, diesel trucks, and I made a comment about spark plugs. If you know anything about diesel trucks, you're already laughing, but the guy on the phone laughed, and he said, "You haven't been doing this very long, have you?" And I said, "What makes you say that?" And he said, "Well, diesel engines don't have spark plugs." And I went from not knowing that diesel engines didn't have spark plugs to having to walk people through, okay, this is the type of cargo that you're going to be carrying. This is about the size and dimensions of truck that you're going to need. These are the specs that you're going to want. If you are going dock to dock, you're going to need a different size truck, not different size trucks. There's certain makes that are dock to dock. There are certain makes that are not. They're a little lower to the ground. I would know when people were kind of bluffing on things or sort of making up terminology because I would ask them to clarify, and I said, "Oh, okay, I know that by this name." Now, again, in sales, it doesn't really ever do you any good to browbeat people or to, be smug. So it was just trying to walk people through things that I made sure we were talking about the same thing, but sometimes they were trying to bluff their way through because they didn't want me to know that they didn't know, which it's like, man, you're the customer. I am here to facilitate but I get it. There's a lot of sharks out there. People are scared. I get it. Anyway, the point of it is that was a gradual growth that happened over time, even though I wasn't fully aware of it while it was happening. Same thing with my writing career. I've been writing for a very long time. I feel like I've gotten more serious about it in the last several years. I've spent countless hours working on screenplays and the Aethersphere series and a couple of other projects, and I've learned a lot through that. Things that can only be learned through repetition, through the doing of the thing, and learning what to keep and what to let go, and letting go of, for instance, there was a saying that I would hear in writing classes that I did not understand at the time, but it said we have to kill our babies, which I thought sounded morbid and really weird, or kill our darlings. That was probably a better way of putting it. But essentially, as a writer, particularly if you're a screenwriter, don't get too wrapped up in the perfection of what you're doing. Don't get me wrong. Execute. Do good work. Don't just realize stuff's going to get cut. All right, things aren't going to work. They're going to have casting changes. They're going to have ideas about how the movie should be shot. People are going to read through your story and say, hey, this part doesn't make any sense at all, and it doesn't relate to the theme of the rest of the story, or it doesn't connect back to this part, or we don't even know who this character is that we're suddenly talking to in chapter 5. What do we do about that? Well, we can either introduce that character earlier or give that character's lines to somebody else that we already know. I know those sound awful to the layman, to the more experienced people. You already know what I'm talking about. But again, these are things that you learn by doing. So when I tried to rush and cram everything into my head and just figure it all out at once, it was extremely frustrating because I'm like, why am I not getting it? I'm trying so hard. There was this saying about this master swordsman that took on a disciple, and the disciple said, how long will it take me to become a master? And the teacher said, if you practice for 5 hours a day, I'm paraphrasing here, I'm forgetting particulars, but if you practice for 5 hours a day, it will take you 10 years. And the disciple's like, well, what if I practice for 10 hours a day? And the teacher says, it'll probably take you 20. And the disciple's like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm working twice as hard. The problem is you're fixating on the goal of becoming a master, but you're not walking through the process. You're trying to rush the process. And when you do, you're going to fatigue your mind. You're going to fatigue your faculties, your ability to absorb, your creative energies, and also frustrate yourself. And when you get frustrated with yourself, when you get angry with yourself, you are not doing your best work. Any creative that's been at this for a while hopefully starts to figure that out. If you haven't figured that out, please stop beating yourself up so much because it's not helping your process. All right. You want to do the thing over and over and over again. Like, think about the way we picture a blacksmith. That ropey muscle in the chest and the shoulders and the arms. Because why? Because they have just hammered away at metal, at piece after piece after piece, and they have probably thrown away more pieces of metal than we can even fathom, because it broke, because it bent wrong, because it didn't cool the way it was supposed to. And ultimately they were able to start making pieces of craftsmanship that were gorgeous and beautiful, and that muscle memory, that creativity through execution over and over and over again only comes through repetition. It's like dance. You can't just learn all there is to know about dance in an afternoon or even a week or even a month. Your body learns to become more comfortable with the movements. So you might practice certain steps thousands and thousands of times. Same thing with martial arts, with writing, with music. Oh my gosh, yes, music, the repetition that's all involved in music. And it is frustrating at points. It just is. But if you love doing the thing, you work through the frustration and you continue to get better. And then what starts happening is, and Robert Greene probably explains this better than I do, and I'm not done with the book, so this is not a talk on mastery. This is just a talk about slowing things down, taking your time, and engaging in the process, which is do the thing over and over again until you become comfortable with that thing. And then what happens after that is you can start building on that. So for dance, for example, you do a foxtrot. You're doing step, step to the right, step, step to the right. And you do that, till you don't need to look at your feet anymore, however long that is. And then when you get comfortable with that, that's when you start working in your hip movement. That's when you start creating style and flow to it. That's when you start learning other patterns of movement. And then once you learn those patterns and you get those patterns down very well that you can just do them without even thinking about them, that's when you start working in flow. Same thing with music. You practice piano, you practice notes and chords and play through songs over and over and over again until you can just do them without thinking about them. And then that is when you start to play. that is when you start to have fun. That's when you get to start improvising or, putting stylized movement into the music that you're creating. Same thing with writing. You learn the tools so you can eventually forget them. Also in acting. And I mean, this could go on for a while. If there's any questions or any follow-ups you'd like me to do on this, by all means, hit me up. But essentially, slow down, enjoy the process, go through it. It will be frustrating at times, but it is frustrating. Learning something new is frustrating, but going through it, be gentle with yourself. Let yourself experience the process. Also let yourself enjoy the process. And you will receive greater dividends in the long run than trying to force it early on. Take care of yourself, and we'll catch you next time.